We would like to greet Dr. Miguel Bermúdez Marin. He is the International Director of the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace, and there he is very attentive in this session. Let's go to our second panel, the importance of regional blocs for the integration and cooperation of states for the sake of achieving the peace of the human family. And for that reason, we're going to invite Mr. Senator Ciro Zabala Canedo from Bolivia. He is a surgeon who graduated from in Bolivia. He is currently the president of the Legislation and Electoral Party of Bolivia, and additionally, he is someone who believes in solidarity and who really supports the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace. I leave with you now Senator Ciro Zabala Canedo.
Morning, good morning, or afternoon. I'm supposed that we are in a little conflictive moment. The science it calls us, and the brain calls us, but also the stomach calls us. So we're going to try to fulfill with the time that have been assigned, and that you, after all this brilliant morning, and for sure, in the afternoon of this session, we can enjoy something that normally CUMIPAZ make us gain weight, but we gain a lot of now our intellectual capacities to fight for the peace of this world. I want to give a fraternal greeting to everyone, and also very effusive, giving mainly that symphony that have been expressed throughout that gala. Very, very incredible that we have felt that music is the fundamental element. So from the inside, we can live in peace. I want to thank, in first instance, to someone who I admire, and I know of his big heart, and he expressed it in this Global Embassy of Activists for Peace as his president, Mr. William Soto Santiago. I want to thank to the main collaborator, but not the only person that collaborates with CUMIPAZ, so we can have these events of this level that in very little parts of this world can be seen with such activity in big by the number of people participating to give us, to every one of us, give us that liberty so we can be gathered, we can interchange our expressions. I want, in the name of the Plurinational Assembly from Bolivia, from where they have assigned me, because as Bolivians we participate in all these events and with very important delegations. Yesterday we said that will be about 40 people that have come from Bolivia, and we usually come to this event just as CUMIPAZ. I want to thank to the activist for peace for his discipline, for his work, his gentleness, and that deserves a very good applause, round of applause. I want to thank the Guatemalans for their generosity, for how they received us, and mainly by the support they have given to the realization and success of this event. Therefore, for them, Guatemalans, to our Central America brothers, a round of applause, please. And then at last, to close with you, those who have the patience to listen to us long hours, because we also are exploited in the sense that we have to be sitting, listening for a long time. But I will ask, what happens if I will not come? How much I will have lost? And that is the big question, because the one who has not come has really lost meeting, have missed a big session with the best representatives, thanks to have chosen the most representative people from the different countries that participated in CUMIPAZ. And I would like to say that also to have assisted is to do some good act, good for us as body, but mainly good for our mind as health in the mind, because peace is not but work over the health in the mind of a human being so he can believe that war is the solution to the problems that we have in the world. I want to also thank because there are fundamental concepts introduced because peace will exist if we respect Pachamama, if we respect the environment, and then if we do not respect Pachamama, we do not respect the environment, we are not respecting ourselves. But we are creating the germ of our self-destruction. If it's not that we're going to be someday we're going to be destructed. For this better world, it's good so we can work every day in this main element that is to work in peace with the power or protest that they said the authority that corresponds to the from the organizational committee. We initiate the second session, and it has a name, a very special name, very rare: diplomacy, parliamentary, political, parliamentary, and diplomatic session under a sign slightly big, the big difference of the regional blocks for the cooperation international between the states in favor to reach the peace of the human family. Somebody said it. Maybe this is the most important term that we are human family. Not that we are states, not that we have borders, but we be a human family. Well, what I want is just to present every one of the participants. We are give them the time, established time, 15 minutes to each one. I'm sorry if I have to interrupt, but I'm sorry, we don't learn this in the parliament. All of them, we are so used to speak, more to speak than to do, and then the word is our tool of work. And sometimes our partners, they write the laws. Well, I'm going to call to our participants. First instance, I invite the Senator Elías Castillo. He is president of Parlatino in Panama. Uh, he's the president of the Latin American Parliament with studies in the College of Law in Panama. He's a PhD honoris causa given by the Latin American and Caribbean University, member of the Superior Committee of the University, and president of the General Assembly of Panama. By very special reasons, he has to take the flight to return right before to present everybody else. We're going to put him up front, and then he don't miss his flight and have serious trouble to return to Panama, even though it's not too far. Well, we invite you to expound the Latin American integration for the strengthening of democracy in the region. Thank you very much. So is this? Good afternoon. I thank you. I truly thank you. This deference, and it's not for nothing important, but it's a need. Yesterday, I had a note in the morning to send an excuse that I cannot attend. But given that in the prior conference that given in Panama, I was under surgery, I could not participate in that. But the Latin American Parliament, he was the host. And then, well, the voice reflects it. I had some trouble. I went to the doctor. They gave me 2 shots plus the medicine has allowed me to be here. And then this is for 2 reasons. That and to be gathered Parlamerica and Parlatino today and tomorrow in Panama City, the headquarters of the Latin American Parliament, organism of which I am the president. And then I have given some instructions, but they passed me to left me for tomorrow. Then I want to greet from this podium to Dr. William Soto Santiago, executive president of the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace, to Director Gabriela Lara, James Lambert, Director of Hemispheric Affairs, and then also the rest of the panel that we're going to participate. Alberto Fabra from Spain, Senator, the Honorable Mr. Eduardo Bhatia Gautier, President of COPA, Senator Juan Pablo García, Vice President of PARLACEN, and of course the moderator, Senator Ciro Zabala. And then PARLACEN, he is here present to COPA, senators, deputies, magistrates from Supreme Court, ambassadors, mayors, academic authorities, civil society, and all the media. Just as the moderator has told us, has been given the title to this summit that truly, just like the moderator said, I will have to make a mistake not to attend. By the importance level of their attendance and then of the subject that has said to be spoken of. And then we speak about infrastructure problems and material situations, and then we oversee the essence, we, the family, the people. But we are set in a subject, in a diplomatic, parliamentary, and politics session. They are connected, those topics. And I am a politician. I have to confess, and I'm sorry to speak in the first person. I have been elected in Panama for 7 times, which is a total of 36 of our parliamentary life. I believe that you can deceive 1 time, but not many times to one people. So well, in the frame of the political world, well, you can see that all the our behaviors are connected. That is one indispensable, mainly element, credibility. If the couple, if they do not have credibility, then that is a marriage with problems. And then in the normal life is the same thing. Well, just a banker with no trust. Well, the customers will fly away. Will be no customers. And then all this is framed under the rights and obligations, because also the citizens, not only politicians, we do not know the rights. We do know the rights, but we do not practice or are not interested to know in a very good way the obligations. Well, these things are a form of a society, and then society it's given to authorities so they can govern over us. From there corresponds the strengthening, and then over this topic or this subject and speaking about politics, in Panama it was celebrated a forum yearly takes place over crises and challenges of the political parties. That was before elections, and then it was Cardinal Oscar Rodriguez Madariaga. He's Honduran, Central American, so he can make the launching of that forum, and he was speaking about the political life is pretty. The political parties are positives. So to participate in politics is nice. Well, the problem is the politiqueria is an expression, and then is one or another one gives a place to that questioning to every one of our countries in big or smaller scale is giving, and then through the media, and then with the aggregated of the networking. Then all these things must be resulted. Our people, it's a goal, continuous goal of the Parliament, Central American and Caribbean. Well, from the Constitution Assembly in Lima, Peru, from 7th to 11th of December to 1964, added practically 54 years of work. The Parlatino is constituted as an organism international, regional area, unicameral, and the permanent character. It is the parliamentary forum regional from Latin America in favor of causes of development and integration in the region. So the Treaty of Institutionalization of Parlatino by the plenipotentiary of 18 states, Latin Americans, and then open to subscriptions from 1987, he proposed the purposes to defend to defend liberty, social justice, economical independence, and the exercise of representative democracy with very tight stick to the principles and no intervention of the people. It's integrated by the national parliaments of 23 countries. Well, all South America, Central America, Caribbean, and Mexico. The permanent headquarters is in the heart of the Americas, Panama, in a modern building built inside of the territory that before it was an American base, known by the old zone of the channel that was given back to Panama by the treaties of Torrijos in 1977. And then with the help and support of all the governments, we achieved that purpose. Thank you very much. Parlatino, just like all parliament, has its direction organisms and organize his work in 14 commissions, permanent commissions, in which I say the effects of the Commission of Political Issues and Municipals, which have come to achieve the objectives plan. The most recent, it was the meeting from 6 and 7 of the September, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where they debate an interesting initiative, which, which was a model law titled Project of Model Law to Promote the Integral Management about the zones at the borders, and then about the budget participating. Without doubt, two topics contributing to the strengthening of democracy and regional strengthening. The Commission was also meeting the 24th and 25th of May in the headquarters, where they analyzed the processes of integration in Latin America and Caribbean, and they share experiences, solutions, and ideas to elaborate coherent actions and coordinated to favor the international migration to help the development of Latin American countries and Caribbeans. In that context, it was discussed over migratory politics, comprehensive and not isolated, just like the need to globalize the free mobilization of humans in an order way and safe, just like to promote the migration, the regular migration, and then reduce the cost of the remittances, the portability of security, social security rights, and the recognition of academic titles, and then management of integral borders, among others. Independently of the efforts that they realize from the government in Parlatino, we work in the integration of our countries from different versions of action. One of them is the harmonization of the laws imposed by the delegates and vice presidents of Parlatino at their respective congresses and assemblies. Just like as illustration among many projects of the model law that we have discussed and approved in the Parlatino, I am allow myself to mention some of what we have approved. The model law in matter of production, public production in medicine for Latin America, the model law against the treat of people, the business of people in the frame of citizenship, security, and protection of the human rights. The model law about sexual health and reproduction. The model law of fishing in small scale. About democracy has been said and written a lot from philosophers, thinkers, politicians, academics, and statistics. For the same reason, in name of it has been built and destructed nations in a way that is a term that requires precision when we speak about it, and then is in a way form part of the declarations and agreements in which they're committed, the states are committed. The democracy is more than elections. Democracy is the method that the people elect the authority so they can guarantee democracy through respect and then institutions, then institutionalization, and then politics of state. And then on the other side, speaking in a parliamentary way, we have to remark that there is no democracy without parliaments. And then in Peru, in one opportunity, a president, he dissolved the Congress, and then for that and other reasons, he is in prison. Here in Guatemala, it was something similar. Something that happened, they tried to dissolve the Congress of Guatemala. Good or bad, they are. That is the product of the sovereign decision, the people. For the effects of this conference, I allow myself to cite Rodrigo Borja. He said, democracy is a way of organization, state organization. Not only is a way of government, promoting a high grade of popular participation in the tasks of general interest. As big the task is more democratic the state. And then the other way, the less possibilities of participation given to the people, then is less democratic and then is closer to be the autocratic model of organization. General Secretary of UN, Antonio Gutierrez, in the context of International Day of Democracy, the past September the 5th, he advises over the threats revolving and saying democracy is under more pressure now than in any other time from decades ago. Therefore, that they should make us to look ways to invigorate democracy and answers to the systematic challenges that facing. Then this includes to take economical inequalities and politics to make the democracies be more inclusive, attracting the youth and other marginated groups to the politi- politics system, and making that these democracies be more innovative to the challenges, emerging challenges such as immigration and the climate change. This is a sentence in under the UN. If that is the global reality in Latin America, we face our own challenges. Consulting the barometer, Latino barometer in 2017, we find that the decline of democracy is more accentuated in 2017 with down systematics of support and satisfaction of democracy, just like the perception that is governed for just some of them. The report says multiple indicators that also confirm the way down. The advances are seeing in the indicator in economical indicators, not in the social and political ones. It's just like a dissociation between two worlds: the world of economy and the world of the political world, political power. The complexity of the global scenario and regional invite to reflection, to permanent reflection over the state of democracy, and that's why the PARLATINO has very strong mandates established in its fundamental documents, just like we have said. The 32nd General Assembly of PARLATINO, the one that had place in Panama December the 2nd, 2016, the guest speaker, Enrique Iglesias, referred to Latin America and Caribbean like as the region with more democratic presence in the world, which is a very important challenge for our countries. And in that, the parliamentarians, we are called to play a very central role. Democracy, there is democracy in Latin America, well, has been accepted, and then at the beginning of the ideologies, we are exceeding in presidentialisms, and then we're fighting to guarantee that balance of powers in our countries. Democracy, just like we have said in these words, represent peace for our peoples, and not only from a superficial perspective and intangible. In the contrary, with a material sense that is manifested in the well-being of the population when is satisfied the human necessities in all its aspects. There are incontrovertibles that there is no peace with hunger, there is no peace without medicine, without a roof, without schools. From there, democracy, participative democracy, that Borja tells us, and without political inequalities and economical ones, that Gutierrez visualized is the way to build by the general society, civil and politics, that will take us to a robust peace and last peace, just like Gandhi dreamed about it, Mandela, Luther King, and for what our Nobel Peace Prize in Latin America have fought. In synchrony with this postulate, we take a message in representation of Parlatino to the General Assembly of the Global Council of Tolerance and Peace in Valletta, Malta, the past July 6th, where I said that one of the primordial tasks of the parliament is to promote channels of communication among the different expressions and political waves and socials for the solution of problems that the communities are suffering. In a independent and interrelationate world, said that the countries of Latin America and the Caribbean, they develop channels of political dialogue and cooperation, multilateral and bilateral, to solve common problems, sharing experiences, uh, throwing bridges of solidarity, and that's what we do from the 23 parliaments that conform in Parlatino. Our common heritage, history, uh, uh, values, they are joined in a vast territory, continental, so with very natural treasures that we have to conserve for these and future generations constitutes our strength and make of this region a space where the progress can reach everyone. That is our mission. In Eurolab, since there are parliamentary delegates from Europe and Latin America, I am the actual co-president of that organism. We share criteria that pertains to both continents, but is more important to the one that I represent. And I have seen topics just like the topic of immigration. It's a topic debated in a lot of times, and we saw it in Vienna, Austria, in the General Assembly. And then we see the topic of the human rights, the topic of democracy, the topic that we spoke about, and topics proper of Latin America we touch about, the global warming and environment. Those are topics that we have been discussed. There are a lot of documents, but those are not being applied just like is really required. The planet that we received, it doesn't exist anymore. We have transformed it. We loosen it. As a final reflection and with the permission of our guests, I allow myself to say that democratic society they will find a way to an functional integration to the service of all the population on this continent. From there, from the institution, more democratic and representative, just like the parliament, we have to discuss and approve, need laws and choose budgets, inclusive and participative budgets, and put all our efforts in so the democracy can improve every day, just like our government as a way of social interrelation. To conclude this message, I wish to finish with some words from Pope Francisco that is proper for the purposes of the convocatory to the uh, international summit and is summarized in all what we said. The common, the well-being, the common well-being requires that the social peace or the stability and security of a certain order that is not produced in a particular attention to distributive justice, which violation always is going to generate violence. All society and in it, in a special way, the state has the obligation to defend and promote the common well-being. Well, thank you very much. I thank one more time COMIPAZ to be in this conference, of which I am very pleased. And by the nature of these topics that I initially said, I thank the authorities of this country collaborating and everything that they've done for to the development of this event that is taking place with a lot of success. I will be leaving before making the balances of this topic or the others and the others. But I will be attentive to recover that documentation because that is what is going to stay to recover that documentation to keep working not only with the presence to have listened but also this every one of us with our missions when we go back to our countries we have it present to give the proper value, the proper success. And I'm going to be here some minutes to share with you with the other panelists, with the other senator. Thank you.
All right, what we're going to do is call each participant in the panel. We're going to take the photograph because it's the only way that we can do so, and our representative will have to leave the table to go on to his flight. I would like to welcome Alberto Fabra part. He is a senator coming from Spain. I'd also like to invite the Senator Eduardo Gautier, who is also the president of COPA, the Parliamentary Confederation of the Americas. And finally, we will invite Juan Pablo García Farinoni, who is the vice president of PARLACEN in Panama. All right, we are going to invite our second speaker to join us, Senator Alberto Fabra Part. He graduated from the Polytechnic University of Valencia, and where he participated in the court system, and he is also a member of the Permanent Congress, as well as the Commission of Economy and Business Budgets General and General Direction of the Autonomous Communities. Our senator is going to cover the topic Mechanisms for Resolving Conflicts in Interregional Integrational Processes. Thank you very much, moderator, for your presentation. I would like to thank the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace, their president and their director general for sharing this summit with us. We're going to come out of here strengthened because we're going to realize that we're not alone, that what we really feel as politicians is shared by many people. People who convey their service to us, their responsibilities, their call to serve others. Maybe they make mistakes, but they always do so honestly, looking at our citizens and working for them for a better future. Today I have realized that what we feel as politicians, it's not what we talk about here. That there are a lot of people who feel this way. There are a lot of people outside who are willing to help us, and that words like peace, responsibility, consensus, dialogue, service, that's something habitual between people who feel proud to be politicians and who want to work for the future generations. That is why I want to thank you for having invited me to share a series of reflections, but above all, to thank you for allowing me to address these words. This has been an intense morning. We've been speaking about incredibly important topics that possibly are in our daily life and in work. It becomes an obstacle in our work. Our daily work becomes an obstacle to see what is really our priority. We forget what our values and what our principles are that should govern our activities. And we should stop that situation and keep the spirit of CUMIPAZ with us to make it possible that people feel that need for democracy, for service, and for helping others. This morning and also in the previous sessions, we've been able to see how people who have participated in the different panels have made a commitment with the society that they represent, and that creates an army of those of us who want to work for others and continue and keep that spirit of CUMIPAZ in us even after we return back home. That is why I think it is important that within that spirit we reflect, because there are many politicians and we can see that in the previous presentations, there are many politicians who speak about these things and who get into the fogs of what's going on in every parliament in every country to take advantage of what many people need to hear. But that's not what is important. But I do want to take advantage of that so that we apply this to our governments. It's not just what we're talking about here. We're talking about the essentials here, about the work that we should do and what should govern the work that we do. But unfortunately, we find that not everyone thinks the same way. A lot of people, what they want to do is get to the top. They don't care about working for others. They just want to have the power for them and for their friends. So we need to change that reality of in politics, because that is what damages our reputation. And I am not willing to let anyone damage our responsibilities. And as I was able to see yesterday that you are all very active and active participants, I saw you yesterday in that magnificent gala we had. Thank you for making us vibrate and really taking us by the hand and moving us, each one of us who are here. So I saw that you like to sing, and that when we take off our ties, even if they're still on, but once we relax, we're really ourselves. And that's what we need more of in politics, to be ourselves, to be natural, to see people, to look people in their eyes and say things as we think them. Despite all of that, despite that kindness that we should convey in our responsibility in our society, conflicts exist. Many conflicts. And that is where I would like to appeal to your predisposition or your willingness to participate. I know that what's normal here in this type of conferences or summits is for one to talk and the rest to listen. And in the best cases, unless it's boring, then we all do this. We take advantage of the fact that we've got our cell phones, or we start to think about other things. But I want to make this a little dynamic, because if not, we're going to get bored, and that we can't do that. The happiness that we have in this, that we feel in this summit, should be conveyed in each one of the participations. So I propose this. I ask this: where do conflicts come from? Why are they produced? I invite each of you to speak about one of the subjects or issues that are part of the situations that create conflict or that lead to conflict. Each one of you can raise your hands and say something. For example, economic issues. We start to create conflict due to economic affairs. And I'll give an example that many of you may know. That between Uruguay and Argentina, from 2005 to 2010, the conflict was produced over some plants that Uruguay wanted to plant in a shared area in the river between Uruguay and Paraguay, and that created a conflict founded on economic affairs. We were also able to see how that conflict was resolved. Let's talk about the subject some of the words we talked about earlier this morning. Consensus. There was an agreement. They signed uh, an instrument in Montevideo where both parties sought a solution. When there is willingness, despite conflicts, we are willing to reach agreements. Well, I've already got the first part of the evening. Now you are the ones who have to animate yourselves, become enthusiastic, and tell me why conflicts come about. Because of lack of communication, with lack of dialogue, lack of connection. We've seen that today, that it's fundamental to talk, to sit down and negotiate. And when we negotiate, we need to forget what what our origins are, what we thought at first, because then we won't come to any agreement. That is fundamental. You get an award, miss. Lack of social awareness. As you said, thinking about our friends, our connections, but it is necessary that there be social awareness and social responsibility at an individual level. I completely agree. How many times have we unfortunately found that there are governors that only seek political influence or getting to get rid of governments that are legitimate because of their own interests? What we need is trust, that generalized trust, so that the citizen is identified, represented in their politicians, and that we can all combat or fight against what all those issues or lack of equality in society may be. Lack of acknowledgement about win-win situations, the win-win relationship. That's true. This is one of the principles of negotiations, of mediators. The that middleman we have to find so that when a negotiation is over with, we don't feel like we lost, but we won. We can't have losers. We need that ability to share a win. I see there's even a dispute to see who answers first. This is going well. A very important point that we see in social conflicts, because that's what you're speaking about, is that usually the population that reaches the government is they're not they're not necessarily good politicians. They're politicians for different reasons. They do not have the ability to understand the political responsibilities that they have as people. One of the problems they have is an ego that doesn't allow them to listen. I'm from Peru. I've got 1,000 conflicts in my country, and uh, the amount of real politicians we have is this small compared to the real politicians because they don't have the correct skills. They were not prepared properly, in my opinion. Thank you very much. The importance of listening as we spoke and knowing our roles are as politicians. When the citizens are elects you democratically, that should be a foundation. Well, there's something that I think is fundamental, and we talk about it very little, which is another issue is that we have commitments that lead us to violate other agreements that we've made. So I think this necessitates an education, an integral education as human beings. That's something we've talked about, but it's true. We should be honest. And above all, we should be committed to what we say that we're going to do. We can't say, well, now that I won their trust, I'm going to do what I want. That it can't be that way. So that honesty of of the politician is also a fundamental pillar. Let's do one more because if not, the moderator is going to tell me I don't have much more time left and then I'm not going to be able to talk about other subjects. We've got one there and another one here, and we'll leave that there. Sorry, I'm going to have to leave someone out. I would have to say it's the lack of memory and not being able to hear because once they reach the top, they don't listen anymore. That's correct. Let's go to the next person. Well, unsatisfied needs of human communities, and above all, the perception of incompatible interests. We're going around the same thing, and that's that once we reach government, we forget what we promised, what we promised the citizens. And if you don't say what has gotten you there, then there's a distance built between politicians and the people due to distrust. So we have to do what we say we're going to do, because if not, the citizen no longer believes in us. And if at some point, because that's always happened, and at some point we have to change something that we've promised citizens because of the circumstances, we have to explain that to the citizens, because without fear, we need to say things as they are, naturally. But without doing that, we can reach the mistake of having our citizens no longer believing in politicians. Let's go to the last one. I think those social conflicts are due to lack of love in people's hearts. Dr. Soto said that this morning. There is a very strong political parties and institutions are criticized a lot, but they don't say that these political parties and institutions are made up of human beings. So I think that what we need to do for the solution of those conflicts is to build better human beings. That would be a good solution. People in the epicenter of politics. That is also something that Dr. Soto has spoken about this morning. Well, I'm going to finish up quickly because the moderator is over here pulling on my jacket. So as you can see, conflicts arise due to a lot of different reasons. And what a lot of people dedicate themselves to is being mediators, to lowering the tension. We can say the same things about the African Union, the European Union, or the UN. The UN, which, as you all know, the role of the UN, keeping peace, preserving peace, defending human rights, humanitarian issues. How many times have we seen directly or via television that the UN, which represents all of us, is participating in something that we don't agree with? The development of societies through what we've talked about here, the Millennium Development Goals and the 2015 Sustainable Development Goals. Also the fight that the UN is undertaking in combating climate change in the Paris Agreement. So these are some of the instruments that the UN has used. So within our objectives or our goals in the next years, within this spirit that we're conveying from here, that culture of peace and responsibility, to fulfill these objectives, to reach our goals, we need to work together, all of us. We can't just stand on the side and not care about things that do not directly impact us and let others deal with it. When we talk about sustainable development, what they say in this 2015 UN agreement is that each one of us is necessary to make a better planet, to eradicate extreme poverty, to fight against inequality and injustice, and climate change. All countries have to contribute. You can't say, well, since I've already done my duties, the others are the ones who have to do the work. No, we all have to pass this exam. We all have to contribute to those objectives to better our planet so that new generations are proud of the work that we've done. We need to work together to develop this work. And I'm going to finish with this. Within those 17 millennial development goals, there is one that is fundamental, and it's one that you can be very proud of, which is the fight against hunger. And I say that because here you've got parliament members who fight against hunger. I've done so myself. I've seen how the work carried out as by parliament members of Central America, of Latin America, has made possible that the poverty index reduces or decreases. And that's a work that, through its success, has made possible that this month we have an international summit against hunger where parliament members themselves of each of your countries will be there because they've done things well. They haven't just seen things from far away. They've put their work into it. And through that daily work, thousands and thousands of people can say that this hunger has been reduced because the statistics are, the numbers are, give us the chills. 815 million people suffer from hunger every year. Those are people that when they go to sleep, they have not consumed enough calories, the calories necessary to develop their daily activities, to carry out their daily activities. And we don't say any, what more can we say about infant deaths? Every 10 seconds, a child dies due to hunger. Every 10 seconds. And can we continue with our hands on, with our arms crossed without doing anything? That responsibility we have as governors, we have to extend it, not only in our countries, but also as global citizens, as citizens of this planet, of our Mother Earth. We need to do it. And to make it possible, to make possible those sustainable development goals that in the year 2030, the extreme hunger in the world becomes zero. And I think that from here, we can convey it to the rest of our workplaces. Thank you very much, and I wish you much success. All right. Now we would like to invite Senator Eduardo Bhatia. Senator Eduardo Bhatia was the president of the Senate of Puerto Rico between 2013 and 2016. He has been a part of the leadership, national leadership, and the regional conference of the Organization of American States. He was also part of the Hispanic census and a member of the National Association of Official Latin Americans Elected. He is currently the president of COPA, the Parliamentary Confederation of the Americas. Thank you very much. I know it's been a morning and almost an afternoon, a long one. Lunch doesn't wait for us, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. But I have to tell you, first I want to thank the invitation that you've made me. Thank you, Dr. Lara. Thank you, each one of you. You're truly a team. I've never been in a conference in my life, and I've been to a lot of conferences. I've never been to a conference that has been so organized that they address you, they help you from the moment you arrive in this country. So thank you very much. That we deserve an applause for that.
I don't say this as a critic, not neither as a joke, but they put in my credential president of Copa Airlines. Well, I will take it because I would love to be a president of Copa Airlines. Then I start with the following. many little of you know what COPA is, so I would like to start briefly. I will do two brief things. Then I want to present to every one of you what is COPA. What COPA is, Parliamentary Confederation of the Americas. And then why is it so important to be with you today? Well, COPA is the Parliamentary Confederation of the Americas. We started from the very top of Alaska, and then we keep going down to Canada. We still going in the United States, then Mexico, go down from Central America, reach South America, and then we go to the final tip of Argentina. We are an organization that picks up the parliamentary people. Why is this so important? I don't know if you have noticed. I am coming from Puerto Rico, one of the smallest places from the Americas. I don't know if you have seen that in the last 18 years or 20 years, this is the first time in history, with a little bit more or less, that we have had continuous elections. Democracy is growing in the Americas, and since it's growing in Americas, we need to know us. We need to see us. We have to link us, and that's what we're doing in the Parliamentary Confederation of the Americas. We share, we speak, we share experiences, and then those who are elected, we have many common points. I'm going to go fast about the Confederation. We have 35 countries. But the curious note is that we're not only countries, we are supranationals also. Well, for example, Quebec is represented not just Canada, of course. Quebec belongs to Canada, but then it's the state of New York, the state of New Mexico, the state of Arizona. And then is Puerto Rico represented, but also is represented the Argentinian states and the states of Brazil. So it's not only the national figure. We have municipal figures. We have supranational figures. And so we invite, because I'm making an invitation to participate, to reach peace, we have to know us, know each other. And then I have to give a round of applause. An applause. CUMIPAZ has a capacity to attract and to call people that is very inviolable. So thank you very much. The objective is the strengthening of community, then respect to dignity and community of Americas. That is very important. Well, I want today, and that's my presentation about COPA. I want briefly to share with you what is to keep me awake at night. What is different from 2017 that might be different to 2019? And if there is a subject that I would like to that you take with you is the following: in the political environment of today, is necessary to wake and to face the culture of lie. The culture of the lie is attacking like never before in the world, and that is the culture of lie. This attacking corporations and nations and is distracting them. We have time not to lose. We have not time to lose. I want to speak about public service. Sorry. And then some years ago, I decided that against the idea that we think that the public servant is a cheap politician. I think the otherwise. I think that a good public servant can fix and can conduct to make some positive work for his country. Allow me to share the brief story of my life. My father, my mother, from Puerto Rico. I am the son of Carmen, a woman born and raised in Puerto Rico. She studied in Massachusetts. In a moment of a deep racism in the United States, I am also the son of Mohinder. That last name is not very Latin. My father is from India, from North India. his fathers and his brothers, all of them, they were murdered in 1947 by Muslim troops during the cruel partition war between the emerging Pakistan and India. But despite their painful experiences and far from the hostility, hatred, and then far away from resentment that they might have, I grew up in a home full of love, tolerance, and inclusion. My parents taught me to defend those who do not have a voice and to love each other. Before I was born, my parents lived briefly in Washington, D.C. On August 28, 1963, thousands. My parents were in the Lincoln statue to listen a young American named Martin Luther King. So that passionate speech, I have a dream, was one of the challenges of greater strength, persuasion, and inspiration of a young generation, trying to bring honor and integrity to the history of this nation. This was a simple principle, but at the same time imperious. What matters is the content of our character, not the color of our skin. I'm scared that 50 years later, the opposite idea is emerging in the United States. I was born in El Salvador, May of 1964, and just counted 9 months after that speech. Apparently, my parents were inspired, and they did not follow the recommendations of Dr. Martin Luther King. This is not the time to afford to cool down. That's a joke. You're supposed to be laughing. My parents moved to El Salvador and they work in the embassy of United States in a project for the fight of poverty in Central America as part of the President Alliance for Progress of President Kennedy. So I am a Puerto Rican, to great honor, conceived in Washington, D.C., born in El Salvador, with an Indian father, a Puerto Rican mother, and married to a wonderful woman from Panama. After college, I lived a year in Chile. It was the year of 1986 and the cruel and repressive dictatorship of General Pinochet, based on deception, lying about the principles of democracy, and applying a very well orchestrated state system to manipulate public events. I work part time at the, I know there are some Chileans here. I work at the Vicaria of the Solidaridad in an effort by the Catholic Church, well, the desperate people trying to denounce the violation to human rights. The people were scared of being visible, but they were urged to show the atrocities. The most important lesson I took from Chile in 1986 is the nations and the peoples pay when the authoritarian governments, they're dangerous. That was 1986. Just add to that 32 years. And then it's today. An emerging weather of democracy and distrust seems to be brewing in the United States and other countries of the world. The concept is simple. There cannot be a democratic form of government if the citizens distrust each other and if dishonestly is a way of life. It is sure what is happening in United States is not good for nobody, for nobody. The political speech has lost contact with reality when we allow the public word to be dominated by discrimination, fractionalism, fanatism, authoritarianism, demonization of others, cult of personality, regulations, and people pay when there is a lack of democratic consensus. Just like my father learned, especially in the India, just like his predecessors, maybe in Germany, in China, of Mao, or even in Chile. I don't know if you, but I'm beginning to hear much of the same poisonous rhetoric that has led to nefarious consequences in the past. The public speech based on so much information that is simply not true leads me to question whether the government of the people, by the people, and for the people can in fact be shipwrecked if we do not do something about it. I see it every day in my government work. Puerto Rico has filed for bankruptcy in 2017 up to today and has lived in an economic depression for the past 12 years as a result of decades of deception and dishonesty of Wall Street and multiple irresponsible fiscal and tax policy decisions by both the island government and of the federal government in Washington, D.C. We now see the enormous consequences of the deceptions in the rating of bonds, ignoring the warnings of experts and simply looking the other way when there was available, serious, and verifiable information. Our, our citizens now pay the price. Draconian austerity measures are imposed at this precise moment by the government. And anti the lesson is high and clear. The lack of integrity has serious consequences. And then the hurricane hit us. September 20th of 2017, we were devastated by Maria, the most powerful hurricane in touching the Caribbean in more than 20 years. We didn't have electricity or water for months. In the high of the mountains, children died because they were drinking contaminated water. The bureaucratic response of the federal and state authorities has been not only shameful, but also reprehensible and immoral. Many people left their survival to their fate. Last November, the New York Times reported that instead of committing to support a large scale emergency relief plan, President Trump declared that Hurricane Maria was not a real catastrophe and complained that the storm had, and I quote, unbalanced our budget a little bit. He announced in San Juan that the official count of deaths due to the passage of the hurricane was only 17 people. We have saved many lives, he boasted and then flew home. The truth was present. Then the truth became present. The New England Journal of Medicine Medical Journal published an amazing report from the Harvard School of Public Health. It estimates that over 3,000 people died about after Hurricane Maria. This recently published study was carried out without the collaboration of the government of Puerto Rico, who refused to provide information, as reported by the researchers. We have all the symptoms of those alternative facts and false data issued by the government of Puerto Rico and the United States. The lack of integrity has consequences that affect the life itself. On the other hand, what do we supposed to do? This guy from Puerto Rico is saying that the lack of integrity is needed in the world, the lack of integrity local, the lack of integrity in the United States, the lack of integrity. What we supposed to do? We are being called. And this environment is necessary to awake and to shake that culture of lies. There is no time to lose. The voices of reason, of honor, of integrity, and honesty require to be listened. We must have it's enough, and we have to learn to say enough. We have to face groups of interest infuriated to saying enough from left or and right. The world of information, of the false information, and alternative facts is not limited to a single ideology. In this climate of confusion, misinformation, and lies, nothing is more powerful than the inconvenient truth of the real events, the strength, the sound of our voices. But I must warn you, you can feel very lonely out there in the wild forest to correct the bad and introduce honesty to public service. My invitation clearly is to face the disease of the alternative facts, wherever they are, where they go, before it is too late. Democracy needs today, in 2018, I hope you invite me to 2019 to be present. Democracy needs today a commitment with our personal integrity. Let, let's verify the source of our information. Internet, Twitter, Facebook, it's giving false information every single day. And people is taking decisions according to information that is not the truth. The one who feels responsible, the one who sees in the mirror and thinks that is a responsible person, has to verify the source of information, has to make the hard questions, and has to educate to others over the information of what the truth is. This generation has more access to technology and social media than any other generation in history. This brings with it the responsibility of spreading the truth. The silence is not an option. Silence is not an option. Denounce, report what must be informed, fix what is damaged, correct what is wrong, and regardless of agenda, do not allow anyone to use false data and simulations to confuse citizens and weaken democracy. Let the vital voices reestablishing the democratic principles. Let's not look the other way. It is in every one of us. We must become the generation that recovers the honor in America and the world. Nothing, nothing, nothing. I repeat, nothing, nothing, nothing is more honorable than to make people hope for democracy again. Thank you very much to all of you.
Continuing with our panel, the presentation of Juan Pablo García Farinoni. He is the Vice President of PARLACEN. PARLACEN, the Central American Parliament. He has a master's in negotiation and arbitration and has also studied the right to education. We would like to invite you to come up to the front, please. It's hard. Hour, lunch hour, to come up here. I would like to quote Mr. Murib from Haiti. We cannot have peace if there's hunger, so let me try to be brief. I would like to greet all of you in the honorary table, ladies and gentlemen, and audience members. I would like to thank Dr. William Paras, Gabriela Lara, for giving me the opportunity, first for giving the opportunity to the Central American Parliament to tell the world what our struggles, what our efforts are for the peace processes. But I would also like to to give the opportunity to I would like to thank you. I would also like to thank a young man, because the young men and women, because there cannot be peace without young and women, the young men and women. I would like to tell you a bit about the history of the Central American Parliament, which was the result of peace accords. It's a beautiful story. I'm going to tell you about it. It came out of an idea that was probably crazy in the middle of conflict sweeping through the nation. Those accords came after the ashes of the Central American governments, which disappeared in their era, and the first of its organs was the Central American Parliament. We we were born out of a accord, so we are agreeing with any type of peace process or struggle for peace in favor of human rights, democracy, and peace in the region. That is the reason for our presence, and that's why our presence here in this summit is very important to the Central American Parliament, where we want to give a voice to our Central American people and present initiatives which fulfill the, the cooperation agreement we recently signed in the Dominican Republic with the Global Embassy of Activists for Peace last August.
We have the oldest integration and most robust system of the region. We are a commercial force, interregional force. We have a commercial agreement with many important zones of the world, like the Agreement of Association with Europe, the TLC with the United States, and I just recently approved the one with South Korea. We have to acknowledge that the region has grown sustainably, much more than the rest of Latin America. And we also have the juridical framework specialized communitary law, which is a specialty within the international public law. But, because there's always a but, economical growth, sustained economical growth is not reflected in the fight of the poverty, because as a region we have not been able to comply with the objectives of the millennium. For example, the exponential increment in the north group, Honduras, Guatemala, and Salvador, which threatens the security of all the region, but we are faithfully committed and focused with a lot of ahínco in the fulfillment of the development objectives sustainable. In fact, our strategic plan 2017 is focused on the compliance of them. We must think in mega works that unites us. A high velocity train that unites our cities, modern ports, and dry canals that facilitate the transit of goods and people. Although, in that sense, we should reform our migration laws, since in some way our interregional Central American brothers are now treated well. A large migration policy should be created among the states parties that guarantee solidarity and human spaces such as family reunification, in addition to the mobility of working force, to expand the market of skilled labor, which entails development for our peoples. We're in the world of possibilities as the Central American integration system. In recent years, we have overcome difficult political and economic situations. And we have solved the problems through dialogue, debate of topics, as well as the international law. We are creating a new branch of public international law, which is the Central Communitarian American Community Law. We're harmonizing approved spaces of common regulations for states are created, one supranational legal language. Since its creation, the Central American Parliament has successful experiences in dealing with substantial issues, intimately linked to the goal of deepening the integration process. An institutional effort that has allowed to promote both with the issuance of resolutions and through the holding of forums, seminars, congresses, and other work meetings in which agreements, pronouncements, and declarations are made, which, based on institutional planning, have made it possible to incide in the regional agenda. On this occasion, it is necessary to mention some of these aspects directed to the strengthening of peace, democracy, and values, as they are: one, Resolution AP 2014, in which we make a call for world peace in the centenary initiative of World War One. Resolution AP 02 2012, in which we advocate for peace and harmony of the peoples, exhorting the governments of Nicaragua and Colombia to continue resolving their differences on the path of public international law. 3. Resolution AP 04 2009, in commemoration of the 74th anniversary of the Roig Pact, and the peace flag is the symbol of human values of the peoples of the earth to live in peace. Resolution AP 10 2015, for the establishment of the flag and the hymn of the peace to strengthen tolerance in the states parties of SICA, among others, that our plenary assembly has presented in the last years. This is justified by the democratic participation of more than 45 political parties of different ideological signs of the six states of SICA in the parliament, which gives the agency an important political weight for the regional impact, and that has allowed to boost the integration process and help solve problems that have temporarily hindered the progress of it. I'd like to remind you that in 2016, the 30th anniversary of the Equipola's peace agreement and the 25th anniversary of the Central American Parliament were commemorated. On that occasion, with the Great Solemn Act in the National Assembly of Nicaragua, we highlighted the spirit of our Isthmic and Insular Union, which put an end to a decade of internal confrontations, which gave new life to integration process, which today inspired us. We recall that moment as the famous point 3 of the agreement, which gives birth to the Central American Parliament as one of the institutional mechanisms that allow a strengthening of dialogue, joint development, democracy, and pluralism as fundamental elements for peace in the area and the integration of Central America. In addition, point 4 has a great validity today, 30 years after being signed. It is the philosophical point that inspires the system of integration. It is extrajuridical. It goes beyond the international treaties and conventions between states because it is the inspiring thought of them, which I quote. Quotations. Peace in Central America can only be the fruit of an authentic, democratic, pluralistic, and participatory process that involves the promotion of social justice, respect for human rights, the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of the states, and the right of all nations to determine freely and without external interference of any kind its economic, political, and social model. This termination being understood as the product of the will freely expressed by the peoples. I close quotations. I repeat, with this great phrase, the birth of the organism for regional peace was inspired, called Central American Parliament. To conclude, it should be noted that for the current year, the Parliament is working to obtain the following results: generate critical analysis spaces, negotiation and proposal spaces, destined to the development of regional actions for the containment of risks associated to natural phenomena, the integral prevention of the risk to disasters and of response to emergencies taking into account to the negative differential effects of climate change on the region, strengthening the process of economic integration and the advancements of the Central American Customs Union, strengthen the legal and social status of women in the region, carry out political actions in the framework of the association of the Bi-regional Association, a strategic European American Union, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Finally, I want to mention more than 27 years have passed since the peace agreement and the birth of the Central American Parliament. The situation now is totally different. The global model that exists today is more international or intersocial, where multilateralism predominates. the regional blocs, and the community of nations. The Central American Parliament must adjust to these new paradigms and update its legal nature according to these new circumstances. Last month of June, we presented the reforms to the Parlacen Charter and they were approved at the plenary assembly where we aspire to be able to legislate in a communitarian and regional with a binding nature only in four matters: tourism, gender, democratic security, and the environment. And as this matters, these are mechanisms for the peace. Under these matters, there is the start affirmative process, not only to understand the single common in in this area, but also to face as a regional bloc the world's scenarios, as the recent proposal presented at the regional plenary assembly at Eurolat on vulnerable populations facing the climate change, taking into account the great paradox of Central America, where we pay the highest bill for environmental disasters and its effects. Despite being responsible for less than 0.5% of greenhouse gas emissions. These are the qualitative and quantitative elements that we offer to the population which define our functions and attributions as Central American deputies, where our primary objective is the generation of the regional well-being, the institutional strengthening of the system in order to be a bloc with sufficient political, economic, and social power to face the global model with criteria of cause and in favor of peace. The Central American Parliament was, is, and will be the scenario for the strengthening of the processes of the humanization and culture of peace. Thanks very much.
Okay. Now we have to make a summary. It's very hard to summarize everything that was expressed. But the only thing I have, although I've written basically everything that has been said, I wish I could have had these speeches sooner. But let's start with this. We started by saying that politics are nice, but what's not nice is cheap politics, which is now which we're now seeing in every sense of the word. And some have said that what the media does is lie, and that these types of lies are what contribute to conflicts. We've also been told something that we should be very worried about. That we are not working on democracy since 2007, and there haven't been hasn't been much progress, but there has been progress in economy, and this lack of connection between democracy and economy can lead to misunderstandings in the future. We've also been told that one of the main topics in our countries in the current crises is that we don't have bridges, we don't have places to make dialogue, we don't have that. Unfortunately, migration, global climate change, democracy, these matters are not being fully analyzed and dealt with. We've also been told that in order to have democracy, people and their leaders must be able to feel democracy. They should be able to understand democracy in order to act democratically. If not, it will be very hard to work in this field. We also have to see what politicians do. How do politicians work? There are good politicians, of course. There are good governors, of course, rulers. But unfortunately, there are also bad ones. And those bad ones, which are fed by lies, make the most harm to our countries, but also to this world, because thanks to those lies, those lies unravel wars. We can also say that there are magic words. For example, in economic terms, in our countries, we need consensus, dialogue, communication as well, negotiation. In other words, giving a place for things. This is fundamental for there to be peace in our world. Also, lack of awareness within our politicians, whose magic word should be letting go of their hunger for power. We also spoke about understanding each other better to make it so that we all win, that no one loses. Because if there is a loser, there will always be someone who is bitter, who will not remain in peace. We finished saying that we've been expressed what parliaments are, both Central American Parliament and other parliaments. And something fundamental has been spoken about, and I would like to reiterate it. Something that it harms us when if we continue to do it. Lying is something that creates destruction. But what's worse is half lies, which are the lies that we use the most, the lies that no one knows how much they are true, but it's enough to have a drop of a lie for it to be a lie, and for it to not be easy to destroy in social media nowadays. Lastly, we can say that the most important thing in our countries, and that's what PARLACEN is for, that is what the PARLATINO is for, is that we learn to dialogue, that we learn to work, that we learn to understand each other and our problems better, and create quick and important solutions. For example, the immigration or migration problems we're going through currently. I would like to finish, unfortunately, by summarizing a bit of everything that diplomatic, parliamentary, and political entails, that these fields entail. I want us to speak about diplomacy, the art and practice of negotiation applied to international relations. I don't know how many of us agree with that. With the objective to seek our own goals with other states. But diplomacy also comes from the etymology of folding, and unfortunately a lot of times we have to fold in our countries in comparison to other countries, and we have to take this into account. If we speak about the parliamentarian part, well, a politician is the one that's part of parliament, as a politician of the country, and a parliament is just the building where parliament members are. We like the word assembly nowadays, because if we see in the definition of parliament members, it's defined as gathering in an assembly for the purpose of. So if we are always there, well, now, for example, in Bolivia, we call it the plurinational assembly, our parliament, since we have 36 nations within our plurinational state. And finally, politics. This has to do with those who govern, who rule, who we call officers. And it's also where the opposition is, who have to, people from different parties have to come together to discuss the subjects or topics in a country, but many times we don't see that. What is mostly discussed are the problems between political parties, between people who want to rule and those who are actually ruling or governing. So we need to conceptually change this. When will there be democracy? And this, I believe, will be the summary that we had spoken about earlier and that we believe is fundamental. There will not be democracy if, if discrimination exists, if discrimination on sex, color, race continues, if discrimination in every sense of the word continues, persists, we won't be able to speak about democracy. We won't be able to deal with it. When we can all work on lack of equality, social lack of equality in our countries, when we can eradicate social exclusion, when we can respect human rights, when we can foment the redistribution of riches, which is one of our problems as well, and when we make it so that democracy becomes a fundamental pillar of peace, instilling in our surroundings respect for human rights, as well as respect for the environment. But the most important element today is to punish corruption, but not only for those who are not in our party or opposition, but also for those who are in the government. Whoever it may be, corruption cannot continue. And we have to give the people their basic services, education, health, living. In other words, fulfill the basic needs of the citizens. If not, there will not be democracy in our countries, because nowadays we would only be focusing on being elected, but not satisfying the needs of our people. There is a saying: if multilateral democracy is our first line of defense, PARLACEN, the Andino Parliament, has quoted this. Much money is needed to make war, to wage war. We should not invest in preparing ourselves. Shouldn't we invest in preparing ourselves to wage peace? And that is an example of CUMIPAZ. Thank you very much.